flight, we are go for launch. T-minus 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. This is Navigating AI, hosted by Rich Wilson, guiding business leaders through the new intelligence era. Let's explore how AI is reshaping business, leadership, and the world.
Welcome to Navigating AI, where we are guiding business and HR leaders through the new intelligence era. Today's episode is titled From Hype to Helpful: How HR Can Use AI Without Losing the Human. Today, I'm joined by someone who is right in the middle of where AI meets real-life HR. Her name is Meredith Campbell-Jess, and she is a leadership coach and senior HR associate with Tall Sky Consulting Group based just outside of Calgary. Meredith works as a fractional HR partner and a coach with growing organizations across Canada and the United States, helping leaders and teams navigate complexity, strengthen culture, and lead with more clarity, confidence, and intention. What I appreciate about Meredith's perspective is that she is not talking about AI in theory. She's using it every day in her practice as kind of a digital assistant who she calls Frederick, while still being intentional about privacy, trust, and keeping HR human. Today, we're going to talk about how HR can move past the hype and fear around AI, how consultants and fractional HR leaders stay valuable when clients have tools like ChatGPT, and how leaders can use AI without eroding trust with their people. Meredith, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to see you again.
You as well, Rich.
So before we go into AI, I want to ground people in the work you actually do day to day. So for people meeting you for the first time, how do you describe the work you do at Tall Sky and the kinds of organizations you support?
Yeah, I would say we provide services from a fractional level to organizations that are typically small or medium sized that don't have capacity yet, or maybe don't have the ability to pay for a full-time HR person on staff. I would say from an industry perspective, it is everything from tech, environmental. We have architectural clients, health, retail, automotive. There really isn't one set of industry that we stick with. And I would also say, it is nonprofit, it is private. We have some reach into government, but tend to stay away from that. There's so much work at the nonprofit and private space that I think we'll leave that government stuff to other people that love that a little more. I think the other side is I work with organizations that are both in Canada and in the US, and most of those are ones that actually span both. So have an organization that has divisions in both Canada and the United States.
Okay. What problems are clients usually facing when they first reach out to you?
Ooh, I'm not going to lie. Most of the time, they're in a situation they have a problem that they're trying to solve. And it's usually a people problem, either an employee they've kept on a little too long and they're trying to figure out how to deal with. They have a policy that they're trying to get in. They're trying to hire. They need to hire people and they don't know how to do that. Screening for interviews, those types of things are really important. I think the big thing that's come up a lot lately is training for respect in the workplace. The new day and age has really brought up a lot of subtleties around what's okay in the workplace and what's not. And people have a little bit more heightened to that. So I think there is more of an awareness. We're doing a lot of leadership training. The other big thing that I'm seeing that we've been getting reached out to is there's a level of leadership that is starting to leave the organization. So that senior C-suite level is starting to leave the organization. That next level isn't quite ready to step in there yet. So those mid-level managers are not quite trained up or have the ability to step in those roles. So trying to help find strategic HR support to be able to develop the people in order to be able to get them to that C-suite level. Does that make sense?
Perfect sense.
Yeah.
So AI has clearly changed the backdrop of that work. What has AI changed most in the last couple of years as AI has started showing up everywhere in HR conversations?
Well, I think, first of all, the fact that it is coming up in everyday HR conversations, it is top of mind for almost everybody that we talk to. I think, I'm just going to start from the story side of things. I mean, What we have done is really looked at ways of saying, how do we train ourselves and train the people that we work with on how to use AI? And so that they're understanding how it can actually help their organizations. I think we started playing with it, and that's how we learned, really. We started right from, we had somebody come in and give us training on a couple of different options and didn't look at it from a business lens. We looked at it in, we have 5 things in our fridge. What can we use AI to create a recipe for what can we make for dinner, to find something fun and a way to actually get the scariness away from AI and trying to find ways of utilizing that. I totally lost your question. I apologize.
No, you're right on there. Thank you. So one phrase that keeps coming up in HR conversations is AI fatigue. From your vantage point, what are HR professionals really feeling about AI right now? Is it excitement, fatigue, frustration, curiosity, or all of the above?
And I think if you asked a bunch of different HR professionals, I think you're going to get all of the above. I think some of us that are using it on a day-to-day basis, it's excitement because there's a lot of things that you can do with it. I think there's curiosity because the changing landscape, it is changing so fast. Like, one day you think you know what you're doing and there's something new that comes up the next day. So it's always evolving. I think there's also a level of, if I hear one more thing about AI, it's so prevalent in the world and the fear that has come with the words AI and what's it going to mean for my job? It's going to come and take my job away. Those types of things I think are so top of mind that I think there is a level of fear, frustration, fatigue with it because there's some of it. It's just, we don't want to talk about AI anymore. Let's just move forward, right? It feels like a looming thing for some people. That's what I have seen. I think there has been a level of frustration also in just trying to say, how do we use it in our organization, right? We've got a bunch of different employees. They're all doing their own thing. How do we corral this, navigate it, look at it in a way of saying what works for our organization and what do we need to employ to ensure that those things work and that we're not limiting people, but also putting some constraints around some things because there is the touch into privacy and all of those things that AI brings. It's always learning. So, yeah.
You mentioned to me previously that questions HR leaders are asking have shifted. What are the top 2 or 3 AI questions HR leaders are asking you now that they weren't asking you, say, a year ago?
Oh, good question. One of the things that has come up a lot from an HR side lately is resumes, cover letters. People aren't writing them anymore. They are
Job
using,
description?
yes, they're using AI to do those things. And so, we had a recent example of, we put out a job ad. One of our associates was looking through resumes and went, wow, that's weird. It's exactly the same resume, but 2 different names.
Oh,
so there's,
no.
yeah, like identical, and figured that maybe nobody would notice. That ability to kind of try to, I don't want to say scam, but work the system a little bit to find a different way in to be the top of the pile from a candidate perspective has become a thing. I would also say interviewing. It's something right now. We do a lot of virtual interviews. We're not always in the city and the place that we are actually interviewing candidates for. So screening interviews and having somebody looking over here and you can see the light flashing off them and going, are they getting the answer themselves? Are you actually getting the legitimate
Wow.
who they are in that interview? So before you hire them into a role, who we think we're getting may not always be that. So there's a question there that has been coming up a lot. I think policy, again, implementing AI policies in organizations and what should we use, what shouldn't we is one of the other ones. And one of the things that a lot of HR leaders are really, really looking at now is the use of agents or chatbots in an organization to be able to say, I have this organization. I'm constantly getting questions on where do I find X in the handbook, right? I want them to be able to just, it's better to save my time. And if they could just type that in, wouldn't that be great? And for me, I look at that and say, sure, it's a time saver that if Joe Schmo is going in there and saying, I want to know how many days bereavement leave that we have in this organization. It's great that they get the information. And from the human side of HR, you're missing a conversation there. What you're not going to get is Joe Schmo has lost a mother, a father, a child, a sibling, and now, 2 months later, they're not performing well in their job.
Mhm.
Their leader comes to you and says, we got to get rid of this person. They are not performing well. This isn't working out. It's because you've missed the conversation that, wow, they're going through something big, that because you put a chatbot or an agent in there, that opportunity for the human connection, understanding, getting to know what's going on in the employee's world might be lost. So, I mean, I know it's a look for efficiencies in a lot of ways. And that bit of one of the reasons why we're in this role is human resources. It's the people and culture side of things. And for me, I do worry about employing some of those things. And I don't know about anybody else, but I have done, from a retail perspective, gone on to somewhere and said, I need an answer to something. And it sends me in a loop. And I get very frustrated and I don't get the answer I want. So will employees receive the same experience that they would be getting from a retail online of saying, I'm just trying to figure out how to return a product kind of thing, and I get sent in a circle? Yeah.
I love that answer. I really do. Okay, let's get practical for a moment here. Where are you seeing AI genuinely help HR teams and fractional HR consultants in their day-to-day work?
Well, you mentioned the bit of job descriptions. Some
Right.
things that I would say that are rinse repeat are things that, from a starting point, from using as a way to take a job description that you have existing and say, I need to make this a little more concise. I know I myself is somebody that I'm a little more verbose. I'm an extrovert. I like to think things out loud. So I know sometimes I have a hard time. What do I cut out? Able to use some of those services to say, look, I've got this chunk of information. I need to make this into 4 lines. What would you get rid of? The ability to use it for things like that. I would also say sometimes I've been in a space where I go, I need to get something out the door. I have 5 minutes. It's at the end of the day. It's an immediate ask. I can go, here's a I need a rough communication, give it some good prompt and context and say, let's at least have a rough draft for me to send to a client to say, hey, this is what I pulled out of ChatGPT in 5 minutes. Like, just as a starting point for you to take a look at. We can go through it and vet it a little bit more tomorrow, but this gives you something to work with. So I think that is being used a lot. I think, to be honest, I think it's starting to become a little overused. Like, we had a conversation at our team level of saying, how is it sometimes, I don't want to use the word dumbing us down, but it is reliant. We're reliant on saying it's so much easier sometimes to say, not sure exactly how to do this. Here's some prompting. Here's some context. What do I do? Should we use it as much as we are? Not necessarily sure that's always true. I think it's, it works for some things and it doesn't work for other things. I think the other side is it's not always right. And it starts to know you. And a really good example for me is when I set my ChatGPT up, and I'll just vouch for the bit of paid, always go paid and use the paid version, turn off learning because otherwise it's gaining a lot of information about you. I set it up to say, what's my style? In a warm, compassionate tone, just to make sure everything is always in that. It was a month or 2 down the line. I had asked to rewrite this a little bit. I can't quite figure out how to get this right. The tone isn't quite what I want it to. And every single thing said, and here it is in a warm, compassionate tone. And I was like, oh, stop it. I don't need that now. And I realized it was me. I was the one that told it to do that. So it's only trying to please me. And I think that bit of it's only trying to please me sometimes comes into that. And knowing how to navigate it and how to use that in a way is really key, especially for an HR professional, and ensuring information is redacted, private information isn't in there.
Something that you highlighted just a moment ago and stood out from our previous conversation is how transparent you are with your clients about using AI. So you've said you actually charge clients less because AI makes you more efficient. How do clients react when they realize that AI is part of what keeps you more affordable to them?
Yeah, and I think we have been our own AI policy within our consultant group, and we all sign it, and we are transparent with our clients to be able to say, this is something that while it's got my lens on it, I actually have worked in partnership with ChatGPT to get some of the content. And what I would have charged you maybe an hour for, I don't need to anymore. I'm now charging you a quarter of an hour because I put here's the shell of something, and I'm bringing in my lens of saying, interpreting that document to ensure it meets regulations, standards, labor law, all of those things. And so there's an ability for us to provide value in services sometimes in a bit more of a strategic lens versus a generalist lens of what we might have been doing before.
Now, has that transparency changed trust or expectations in any way?
I would say no. I think one of the things that we provided early on too was saying, hey, here's some AI training. We're happy to provide it to you and your teams as well, so you guys know how to use this, so that it's really clear about what we're doing and what you're using it for can be the same thing. And could they very easily go in and write their own job description? Sometimes they do. And it still comes to us from a strategic lens to be able to say they don't know exactly what the law says, right? In BC, specifically in British Columbia here, there's a pay transparency law. So there are certain things that have to be in a job posting to be able to meet requirements that they'll get in trouble for without knowing some of those things, just as a little example. And so, we have the lens to be able to know what to put in it, what not to put in it, those types of things. So I don't think it's eroded it. I think it's actually probably built that a little bit more to say that, you guys might be using it too. How can we help you use that?
Right.
That is good for your organization and good for us. And if there is things that takes away from us, that does give us a value in a different way.
So, in our previous conversation, you made a strong point about trust already being fragile in many organizations. How is it that trust deficit showing up when leaders start using AI generated emails or communications?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for me, the voice is disappearing. So I'm a leader, and how I normally speak and how I normally show up in person, then an email communication comes out from Joe Leader, and the voice doesn't sound the same. People start to question which one of those is real, and is the audio and the video matching? So I think being really cautious about, again, ensuring your voice is in there and not doing what some leaders I have seen do and copy and paste verbatim into an email and send it out. And at times, even not taking the time to edit out the fact that it says, I can provide you this in a much warmer, different version if you want, and hitting send.
Oh, what funny.
And I mean, we all move fast at times, right? And so those mistakes happen, knowing that people are already in that space of saying, did you write this? Or did AI write it? And for somebody who, I love writing, and I have always used M dashes. I cannot use M dashes in my writing. I'm forced to change it because people assume now that if I use an M dash, I didn't write that. AI did. Yeah. So I think it's starting to show up in a bunch of different ways.
Now, I remember that from our previous conversation. We did talk about that. Okay, so this is where a lot of leaders get nervous. What are one or two simple practices leaders can adopt to keep communication human and authentic, even if AI helps with getting the creative juices flowing?
I think, I'm going to talk about ChatGPT from a tool perspective and because that's one of the ones that I lean into the most.
Okay.
And I would say that ask it what it knows about you. It is collecting, even if it's not feeding the learning from a grander perspective of the world, it does everything you're asking and prompting it to and asking questions of. It is gathering learning about what it knows about you. It tries to please you. Ask it. What do you know about me, ChatGPT? It's interesting because it starts to pull all of the information and use that as your voice. I have used it for questions with my family, for other things as well. It then tries to pull those contacts of things into business type information because it thinks it's being helpful. So I think checking that is a really important thing. I would also say for sources, when you're asking it something, it will lie to you. It does. It tries to please you, and it will totally make something up. Or I think the term right now is it hallucinates and tries to give you information to fill in the gaps. We've actually had a situation where it was cite your sources. It made up AI sources for it. So even clicking into the source that it said, this is legit. Okay, it actually isn't. It actually is pulling from information that I've given it before to say, look, it's factual, when it might not be. So checking those things. Again, I think I talked about it too, turning off the learning mode and making sure that the information that you're putting into it, while I love the fact that, it's helping the greater good of the entire world, it also means that you're putting your information out there for anything to grab. So turning off that learning side of things is really an important piece just to maintain privacy.
You may have already answered this, but I'm going to ask this anyway.
Yeah.
What's one clear red flag where you'd say, if you're doing this with AI, you're probably eroding trust rather than building it?
Taking it verbatim, copy pasting, I would
Mhm.
say, trusting it completely. There was a lawyer in British Columbia as well that was citing cases that they were using
That
AI
happened here in
for.
the US as well.
Yeah, that actually weren't real. They weren't real.
Yeah.
So again, taking it as the single source of truth is probably the big red flag, I would say, from a trust erosion side of things, but also taking the time to not just use it for everything. There is still, you have an organization, you have people that are within it. Without the people, you have no organization. How are you relying so much on this electronic tool and this technology that is there ways to augment some of those relationship building things with the people that work for you? And try to make sure that, yes, using it as to augment and say, I have a communication that's going out and I'm not sure how best to say this. This is what I have as a starting point. Making sure that what comes out is legit. It's about you. And it doesn't take away from the human aspect of it. Sometimes if you've set it up to say, I just want it to sound factual and concise, that warmth of, hey, how are you at the beginning of an email goes away because it's straight to the point and factual. Checking with people how things are landing. I know that sounds simple and straightforward, but, having conversations with people and not just using AI as a way to communicate. I think the joke is right now that it is in communications with your team. Here's the leader. They're writing something in AI. Here's the employee. They're writing something back in AI. So it's AI talking to AI. We're missing that whole human side of things that I think, if I go back to some of your beginning questions, that bit of fear that everybody's afraid of, that it being taken away and being replaced by leaning into it all the way without being cautious, that might happen.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about Frederick for a moment.
Yeah.
You've named your AI assistant and treat it like a thought partner. What changes when you think about AI as an assistant rather than a replacement?
I would say, I as a HR consultant, I'm very fortunate to be able to work from where I am or work where I live. I will put it that way. And I feel like at times he's a member of my team, right? And I know it's that bit of his name's Frederick because it feels less weird saying, "Hey, I'm not really sure how to reword this," but using him and feeling like it is more of an assistant to me. I don't want it to replace me. I just sometimes need to go. I'm going to actually, you know what? I'm going to go back. I'm an extrovert. So one of the things for me sometimes is I cannot figure out exactly what to say or how to do it without throwing it out there, talking it through, and sometimes even having that ability to turn on the voice mode and say, here's the things that I'm thinking about right now, and I'm trying to figure out how to frame it. Any suggestions? Because I've got this and this and this and this and this. It helps me think through the problem as well and provides a little bit of guidance for me to say, that might be too much. This might be your sweet spot here. Or here's a couple options I could lean you in that might help you solve this problem. Yeah.
What kinds of tasks do you trust Frederick with as a first pass? And
Ooh.
where do you always step in as the human?
I think I always step in the human every single time. There is never anything that I would just say, hey, Frederick is done, and I would send it out the door. I think a lot of the times it is I'm crafting something and again, need a bit more conciseness. I am taking something and I'm just trying to think of what a really good example is off the top of my head. A policy and saying, have I repeated myself in 5 different sections of this policy without looking through 100 pages of something to say, is there areas that is there redundancy here that I need to actually eliminate? I would also say tasks like, again, I've created a job description on my own and gone, this is what this organization needs. I need to make it into some sort of jazzy, fun questions that are like something that would really capture an audience. And sometimes it is saying like, this is who I want to hire. This is who I'm expecting this role will fit. Throw this in the lens of saying, what questions would I ask that is specifically for an IT technician, specifically for somebody that is skilled in environmental communication. I'm human. I look at it from my lens first, and being able to have another set of eyes to be able to say, if you were male or female, what would this really relate to you? What would this look like? Who do you think would apply for this job? Because sometimes I'm writing it and go, oh, this is a specific demographic that I'm getting, and that might not be, I don't want to narrow it down too much. So how do I change my language to be able to do that? Did I answer your question?
You did. So for someone listening who feels intimidated, we talked about that fear earlier. What one easy, low risk way an HR professional could start using AI as an assistant this week?
I would say play in it. Playing in it takes away the fear. And what started it for me to begin with was we moved into this house. And there's an odd shaped living room, and there's a lovely jutting out fireplace that separates the dining room and living open space area. It's lovely, but really hard to put furniture in. My daughter said, you know how we did our house? We actually took a couple pictures of the living room and put it into ChatGPT and said, how best to arrange this? And so that's fun. Let's just try that. Wow. Some good options, right? The same thing about dinner. Finding different ways of saying, I've got, these 5 ingredients. I haven't had a chance to get groceries because I've been really busy. What could I make with them? As a way to be able to do some things that are a little more fun, that take away the fear aspect and trying it. I mean, we all learn how to do things by playing in it and trying it, and it makes it a little less intimidating, I think. And if I go back to our AI training, some of it is how we started was write a story, right? Give it some prompts and tell it to write a story about something specific. See what comes up. Write a fun song for me based on these types of things. I'd like to give it to my son for his birthday, kind of thing. Something like that. As a way to try it and then look at ways of saying, how can you maybe give this a little bit more of a go in a business capacity? We have somebody in our organization that is newer to our team and isn't as familiar with using AI. And you joke about Frederick. We have a Frederick, we have a George, we have a Henry, and he's saying, okay, that's a little strange. And he hasn't had the ability to play in it. And so for us to try to get him to try to use those things without playing, he won't try it from a business perspective. It's just a little too intimidating, as you say, because there's a lot of there's just like everything else, there's a lot of different tools out there. And knowing what works for you, whether it is using it as something like ChatGPT or using it as something like Firefly's AI for note-taking, Otter for note-taking, some of those things, it's hard to know which tool to pick. So playing in a bunch of them also, I would say, and trying to find the one that works best for you.
Okay. Now, a lot of organizations feel stuck on their AI policy. If an HR leader is starting from scratch, what are the first 2 smart moves you'd recommend on AI policy?
Get training, first of all. Don't just try to shot in the dark, figure out picking randomly picking a tool that maybe you think works for you and that will work for the whole organization. I know a lot of organizations right now are leaning into Copilot because they use the suite of Microsoft and just say we are using Copilot and that's what we're using. While I can appreciate that, there's some benefits and maybe not so many benefits to that. And so not just sticking with one, trying things out, doing some research, figuring out what you actually need before you're committing into saying, this is what we're going to use. But I would also say having a policy is a big thing because there is organizations that say, do what you want. That to me is a little scary because you've got then hundreds of employees that are using different tools in different ways. Going back to data, privacy, all of those things. How is it being used? How is it not being used? What is careful? What is not? What's going out into the world? I think I was at a conference last year or the year before, and they were talking about even certain organizations and certain professions making people turn off Alexa, making people turn off things when they're in their home office because they're constantly listening, right? So having those policies. So where's their IP risk in there? Where I'm talking about something with a client, about something online, and my Alexa is here listening to those things, and that's being pulled into the learning world, and other people are having access to that. So I think really doing your due diligence on what works for your organization, and not just making a random pick. And then again, getting some training on how to use it and training your employees on how to use it. What should you do? What shouldn't you do? Those simple little tricks of turning things off, turning things on, knowing how to check what is actually it has learned from you, those types of things.
Okay. You were very candid in our previous conversation about something many consultants are quietly worried about. When clients can draft job descriptions or policies themselves with tools like ChatGPT, how are you thinking about the value of fractional HR going forward?
This is something that we've been really talking a lot about lately. And I think a lot of it comes back to knowing how to interpret. No different than right now. Legal is in that same space where people are starting to draft their own legal agreements. I'm drafting my own will online with using AI. You can do that. And what are you missing by not having the expertise to know how to interpret what that actually should be, and ensuring that, somebody joked at one point about saying, oh, an employment agreement. They could just put them together, and it's like, you can. And there is the risk of saying, have you got the termination clauses that are correct for your province, your state, your whatever that looks like? I know specifically even in the US with some of the employment agreements, it varies state to state. What is required in, say, Colorado is very different than what is required in Texas or New York or Florida or California, right? So knowing how to interpret those things keeps your company out at mitigating risk at the same time. You could try it, but don't always have the expertise to know what should be in there and what shouldn't be in there. So yeah, I think that's my first answer.
Okay. Before we wrap up, I want to get tactical.
Yeah.
What have you learned about how to talk to AI tools in a way that gets better results for HR work?
I think the biggest thing is really knowing the prompts that you use. It needs context. It absolutely needs context for everything that you're asking it. And so, if I were to dump in a one-line sentence of saying, I need this, what it's going to give you will be bare bones frame. If you are actually putting in something of, I'm an HR professional in the industry of blah, 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 and I'm looking for further more information or research on a compensation framework for, this type of role, how can I best use that? I think knowing how to prompt it in the right way. I also think that one of the things that we've learned is sometimes if you're stuck on a prompt, ask what prompt will work to get you the answer that you need. It sounds so simple, but it's like, this is what I need the outcome to be. What's the best question for me to ask you that would help me give me that, and being able to utilize it that way. And knowing, again, it's not always real. And so knowing to check the work and all of those things to ensure that what you're getting is legit. Yeah.
Okay. A lot of people listening feel behind, but don't want to be left behind. If you could give one piece of advice to HR professionals who feel overwhelmed by AI, what would it be?
just give it a try. Don't be afraid. I think, again, I was at a speaking event a couple of years ago, and they were talking about the use of AI. And again, is it going to come and take all of our jobs? And one of the examples that was cited that I loved was going back to old school days of the people who used to light the lanterns on the street. There was somebody's job to go in, hoist them up, take a match, light the lantern, and then go to the next lantern to light the streets. Yes, they lost their jobs when electricity came in, but what it did was it turned into other jobs for electricians, light bulb manufacturers, like all of those things. So that bit of being afraid of what it is going to do to your profession, what if it turned into something that allowed you in an HR profession to have more time for those conversations you've always wanted to have with your employees? What if it allows you some free time to be able to say, all of those actual tactical things that I've kind of been putting off because I haven't had the ability to have time to do, this gives you some of that. It gives you more time to possibly have conversations and connections with leaders, understand a little bit more what might be needed. So I think, finding a way to be able to alleviate the fear and say, embrace the curiosity. What could this possibly do to help me? Throw on your own coaching hat. How could I have this be something that, if I embraced it, what could it do for my world? And give it a try. Do some investigation, play a little bit in it, experiment.
Okay, very good. Let's shift gears for a moment and talk about marketing now. You've built a trusted client base, and I think our listeners can learn a lot from how you approach the business side. So, what is working best for you right now in terms of marketing channels?
I would say all of our marketing comes from referrals. It is something as simple as a Google review. Most of the time, our phone will ring or an email will come through, and it is a client that has said, we have had such a great experience with Tall Sky that we're referring them. And so we've had a lot of, I would say 99% of our things come through referrals. And what I would say is a lot of fractional HR services are done on retainer. And we don't do that. So we are the exact opposite of that. We bill as needed. And so while here's the gamut of suite of things that you could have from us, you don't have to have all of it. If you only need this and you only need this, or you need help with outplacement. You've got a termination that you have to do and you just don't know how to do it and you need some support coming in. We're there to help do that. You might need to hire somebody XYZ. You might just need the job description. We can do that. You might need the full thing, right? From job description to putting a bum in a seat and onboarding them into an organization, right? Like that's something we can do too, but we don't have to do all of it. And I think that's been our unique selling proposition is there has been that bit of you select what you need and we're there to help with that. So I think that's what's really helped support us.
For any business leaders tuned in and thinking, we could really use Meredith's help, what is the easiest way for them to connect with you or learn more about Tall Sky?
As always, I would drive you to the website, first of all, which is tallsky.ca, www.tallsky.ca. I drive you to the website because all of our services are there. There's also a great snapshot, too, of saying, here is the team that we have. And I think, one of the things that I want to say about our organization, too, and I love, is that when you're hiring somebody as a consultant, you're not just hiring the one person. You're hiring a team of people. We all have different expertise. It's not just HR, but we all come with a business lens background as well. So really looking at it from an organizational perspective. And if I don't have the expertise in it, I know somebody on my team that I can go to that says, I know they've dealt with this before, and I can go in and check with them and figure out what that looks like to be able to provide the best answer. So yeah, I mean, that's what I would say. You can follow us on LinkedIn. I like to do a lot of blog articles and things there. So love to share leadership stories and that type of thing.
Okay. Meredith, this was a great conversation. Thanks for bringing such a grounded human perspective to a topic that often feels overwhelming.
Rich, thank you very much for having me. You made this a seamless conversation. And I want to say it is a pleasure to be able to just share any information that I have on this in a way that might help others make an informed decision and know how to utilize it in a way that's way less scary than they think it is now.
Yeah, well,
So
we
thank
really
you.
appreciate you helping with that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mission accomplished. This is Navigating AI. Subscribe for more insights into how AI is transforming business, leadership, and the world. Until next time, stay curious, stay ahead.